America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation. And today we are speaking with Patrick Hedger, who's returning to the show. Patrick is the director of policy at NetChoice, and it looks like the business community is urging the Trump administration to cut the red tape holding back AI development in the U.S. We're going to break that down with Patrick, why streamlined rules could be the key to keeping America competitive. Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Good. Well, you have said that America must win the AI race for the sake of our values and our freedom. Tell me what winning actually looks like in practical terms.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is a race really without a finish line. Winning means that we are consistently able to keep ourselves ahead of the Chinese Communist Party and ahead of Chinese firms that are also building out major AI systems. Because really, this is a two-horse race, right? If we talk about winning an AI race, the only competitors really are the United States and China. There's not really a European AI sector to speak of because they previously regulated their modern tech sector, the tech sector that we know of today, basically out of existence. So they don't have the types of Googles and Metas and Amazons of the world that are actually building the future AI systems. But China does have those. And so the question is, as we build an AI network and is the future of global AI systems, really, and all software will be AI essentially in the future. Are those systems going to be imbued with American values and built by American companies, controlled by Americans, or will the entire essentially global information system run on systems owned and operated by effectively the Chinese Communist Party? So I think the decision there and the answer there is pretty clear as to why we need to win.
How real is the threat from China's advancements with models like DeepSeek that are closing the gap? Because I've read that we're leading this race, and I like how you phrase that no finish line, because I agree with that completely. It's just a great way to phrase it. But tell us about how China is closing the gap.
Yeah, so in a lot of respects, China is very close. Thankfully, we are ahead on sort of the underlying models and the development of the AI systems themselves. But in terms of the potential applications for AI, the Chinese are ahead of us in certain areas. Robotics technology is a obvious one where China is really, kind of leaps and bounds ahead of us at this point in terms of actually building the hardware that AI may eventually be incorporated into. So this idea that we can just rest on our laurels and that the United States has always sort of been the home for innovation and new technology, we just can't, rely on that as a given. Those are policy choices that make that happen. So, but China has been catching up, and look, they don't always play fair. There's plenty of espionage that goes on, stealing corporate secrets and things like that. But regardless of how they get there, whether it's through good innovation or cutting corners, if they get there, that's the ballgame.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying in terms of national security risks. I know you've spoken a lot about that. Is that, what do some of those immediate risks look like as China looks to try to close this gap? What are we most concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw that, Anthropic, a US AI company, is reporting that they thwarted a major cyber attack, which they think was emanating from China, that was extremely sophisticated, and it was done with basically very little, like maybe only, 10 to 15%, was humans actually initiating the action. It was an AI that was acting on instructions that was doing basically 80% of this attack. and it was doing something that would take a significant amount of manpower and time to otherwise execute. AI could execute this cyber attack a lot more effectively and a lot more quickly. So there's the cyber aspect of it, but then there's bringing cyberspace into the real world. And as we saw actually a couple months ago in the war between Russia and Ukraine, the Ukrainians were able to basically wipe out one of the legs of Russia's nuclear stool, their nuclear bombers, using AI trained drones. So instead of having to have human pilots identify and fly into these targets, they were able to train the drones to identify what a Russian bomber looked like. They deployed the drone from the back of a truck, and all of a sudden you have a $30 or $40 machine that's wiping out a multi-$100 million machine, and that really creates a really dangerous asymmetry in warfare. So. Good for the Ukrainians on that, but it really highlights the potential of this technology because it's a true general purpose technology. It can be utilized like electricity, like the internet, to do a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, what's to stop China or some other country from doing that to the United States?
Right. It really, AI as a true general purpose technology, I mean, it has the ability to essentially turbocharge human capability, right? And so it's really important that we have AI systems for ourselves, be able to defend ourselves and make our lives better. But we have to acknowledge that it can really bring down the cost to execute really sophisticated attacks. And so, there's the military aspect of it as well. But really, in the main, conflict we're in with China really is who's going to control the global economy going forward. And as I said, AI is, again, a general purpose technology. I mean, imagine if China had a monopoly on electricity back in the day, or the Soviet Union rather, was electrifying a lot of much more rapid pace than the United States, or if a hostile nation dominated the Industrial Revolution. Like this is the kind of stakes that we're talking about here.
Yeah, globally, AI could add $22 trillion in economic output. What does that scale of wealth creation mean for American workers? Because everything I've read says that our workforce is not ready for this. We're going to have a lot of people displaced, but they're not necessarily going to be able to move into those jobs.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this is not something where the horse is out of the barn just yet. We can still make policy choices right now that will help with this. And what we're seeing is that the companies that are building AI systems here in the United States, again, Meta, Google, Amazon, they have these worker programs out there where they're saying we want to train and develop a new workforce. They're investing billions of dollars into K-12 programs, higher education programs, and worker retraining programs because they see there's going to be a demand for workers that know how to utilize and incorporate AI into their workflow. So AI is really geared towards optimizing human work, not necessarily displacing it and making us all a lot more efficient. But that is true. We're not doing a great job in terms of gearing our kids and our existing workforce towards that energy transition, where there's going to be a lot more demand for potentially skilled labor and building out data centers, plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, huge demand for them, as well as workers that understand how to utilize AI in their day-to-day lives and in their workflow. So it's really important because that $22 trillion you mentioned on a potentially annual basis, addition to the global economy, that's like adding 4 new Germanys to the global economy. That is enormous, an enormous amount of wealth. So it's important, and I think that we get ready to be able to try and harness that here in the United States and not let a lot of that slip over to China.
If Meta and Google are investing a lot of money in training a new future workforce in schools and catching them when they're young, and then the demand for plumbers and electricians start to increase and things like that, do you see the demand for college decreasing?
I don't think I see a demand for post K-12 education decreasing, but maybe just changing college as we know it. And I think this is something that we really should have been focusing on a long time ago. I mean, prior to the advent of AI, you look at the student debt crisis. It's clear that there was some sort of economic asymmetry going on, right? Kids were taking on a lot of debt and then couldn't pay that debt back. That tells me that the schools, whether it was the K-12s or the secondary education or both, we're not putting kids on the right path. And while there were strong demand signals for skilled labor. So I think AI is really forcing a necessary conversation that we should have been having on a lot of different topics, whether that's electricity production or whether our school systems and education systems are producing the workers we need. These are conversations we should have had decades ago, even before AI came onto the scene. So it's forcing important conversations that are long overdue.
Do you think there's a role for a public-private partnership with companies for this retraining and preparing the new workforce, or would you rather see it stay in, with private companies like Meta, Facebook, and others for that matter?
Well, just given the presence and the how government essentially dominates education at all levels, even in the colleges, right, are mostly most kids are going to state schools. I think it's important that there is coordination between the private sector and the public sector in making sure that we're doing this right. But we don't want to do this in a way that moves the AI transition at the speed of government. That's something that we have to be really careful of, because if we pace AI to the speed of government, the Chinese are going to run right ahead of us.
Yes, we need it to be at the speed of business, not government,
right.
which is completely different speeds. President Trump's $500 billion Stargate initiative made headlines. From your perspective, what is the scale of investment, this scale of investment unlock for U.S. leadership? Trump's been very open to deregulation on AI. He's embracing it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's what we're talking about here is a major investment in the backbone infrastructure for the current U.S. economy and the future U.S. economy. Building out advanced AI systems is going to require fiber optic internet connections. It's going to require new electrical lines, and it's going to require new electrical plants putting electrons onto those lines. And those are things that are going to benefit the rest of the economy as well. And the data centers themselves, the AI systems and the data processing and storage that happens at data centers, that's all really, really important for Internet of Things technology, if you will. So AI and data-enabled machinery at a factory, for example. So it is all upstream, if you will, of manufacturing and lots of other industries as well, optimizing small businesses, things like that. So this is really about creating a new type of general purpose technology, again, akin to the impact of electricity and internet itself on the economy. AI is going to have that impact, and potentially even more so.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Congress says it wants to protect kids online, and you're warning that these bills actually undermine safety. It's the App Store Freedom Act is one of such bills. What's the biggest misconception that lawmakers have right now?
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk right now about trying to increase competition in the technology space, and that's something that AI has done. We've seen a lot of new players come out of nowhere and essentially really shake up the industry as we know it. A lot more people are doing searches on ChatGPT than on a traditional Google search these days. So there is still vibrant competition that's happening because of innovation, but Congress is trying to central plan the tech state a little bit more than we would like to see. And unfortunately, the App Store Freedom Act, which sounds great, and I think it has noble intentions, is this bill that's designed to essentially change the way your mobile operating system works, whether that's on your iPhone or on your Android. They work in slightly different ways and provide different balances and trade-offs for folks. The Apple system is a little bit more closed. It's harder to get outside software onto your iPhone, and they do that because they take a walled garden approach, which they think optimizes the performance of that and the security of that device. But some companies want to be able to access your phone easier. They want to be able to access your kids' phones easier. So they're pushing this legislation to be able to get around the Google Play Store, get around the App Store on iOS devices, and also get around the secure payment systems and parental controls that exist in those app stores and app ecosystems. And it's really all about making it easier for them to sell boost packages on dating apps or a new trinket on your video game to your kid. And that I don't think that's a really good trade-off to make. I don't think we should be sacrificing cybersecurity in order to essentially subsidize app companies.
So are they using the argument that Apple and what is the other app store called? I can't think of it right now.
It's the Android operating system.
The Android, thank you. I'm not an Android person. Is that they are suppressing competition, and that's why they're looking to get around it, kind of using that type of argument so they can get around those app stores and be able to access the phones without having to go through the app stores.
Yeah, they're making that argument, but I think that argument really misses the fact that you have Apple and Google take different approaches to their operating systems in the mobile space. The Android and iOS have significant differences that offer consumers a choice. And what this legislation would do is essentially eliminate that choice and make all operating systems effectively operate the same way. And it would sacrifice some of the things that people like about those systems, again, in order to increase choice, potentially lower down on the stack that is at the app level versus at the operating system level. So I don't think that's a good trade-off to sacrifice the choice at the most important level that the consumer enters the market in determining, am I going to get an Android or am I going to get an iPhone? And it also ignores the reality that there are a lot of different software distribution channels, particularly in these areas. You still have app stores on video game platforms, for example. You have the ability to download software onto your laptop and home computer as well. So they're just looking at it only as apps are only on the mobile operating systems. Really, just it's missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I mean, Apple and Google are, very trusted brands in terms when it comes to our phones. We really trust putting our, having Apple Pay and the secure payment systems, the subscriptions and the ease of it as well. I mean, it's all in one place. It seems like these lawmakers are really they're misunderstanding the value of the trust that the American people have in them. And it does feel like there's some level of protection. Maybe protection is a strong word, but some level of guidelines that these apps have to meet specification wise to actually be able for us to make it into the app store for us to even see that they exist.
Yeah, I remember the early days of the internet where if you click the wrong link, I mean, there goes your computer, there goes all of your personal information. You get a virus, and all of your personal information's gone. So we don't really have that problem as much in the mobile operating system space because it's much harder to click a link and immediately download malware onto an iPhone, for example. That's something that these secure ecosystems have really they've weeded out that problem. So and I think people do, to your point, they take for granted the trust that Americans say, oh yeah, I can give my credit card to my Apple Wallet and I don't have to worry about it. And those systems are not built for free. Like those security protocols and the trust that these Apple and Google have, that didn't come for free. And this idea that major app developers that are benefiting from that trust and benefiting from the frictionless nature at which Americans do download new apps without having to do their own kind of vetting process of the developer, that is something that app developers make a major benefit from. So this idea that they shouldn't have to contribute to that doesn't make any sense.
And what about the breaking the parental controls? You mentioned that. I mean, that's such a huge issue for parents. I can't imagine that there's a single lawmaker, Democrat or Republican, that would want to do anything to jeopardize the parental controls. I mean, there are groups out there that don't think we have enough parental controls in these phones.
Yeah, that's what's so odd. You find a lot of the same folks that are pushing for more online child safety regulation that also back legislation like this. And to me, it makes it seem like that there's just a coalition out there that wants to do whatever possible to kind of score points against America's major technology companies without kind of really analyzing and understanding if these pieces of legislation that they're backing run headlong into one another. And this idea of we're going to open up the app ecosystem for more competition, in theory, inherently means that you're going to have more points where parents are going to have to put up parental controls. Right now, with an iPhone, for example, it's very easy. It's because it has that closed ecosystem. There's not as many channels by which kids can get access new software or get around parental controls. But to comply with the App Store Freedom Act, for example, that creates a lot of different avenues for kids to kind of test the fences, if you will, and get around what the controls that their parents put on their device. And I don't think that's a worthwhile trade-off.
I completely agree. And I hope that any parents listening will contact their lawmakers and share with them their concerns about having anything jeopardize parental controls. Patrick, tell us where we can find out more about NetChoice and see some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. You can certainly follow us on X at @NetChoice, and our website is netchoice.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us on Main Street Matters today, America's small business megaphone. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.